right. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Edge of Healthcare, Lessons from Leaders to Use Today. My name is Martin Cody, Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Medicat Health, and your host as we get to interview some of the leaders from healthcare today and learn how they got to where they are, where they're going, and some nuggets that we can use today to fulfill ourselves, advance our careers, and make certain we avoid any mistakes. Today, I'm joined by Israel Krush from Hyro AI. Israel, it is fantastic to meet you, and I'm looking forward to jumping in. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you for inviting me, Martin.
My pleasure. And the first thing I want to call out to the listeners and viewers is your current location. Where are you where are you talking from today?
Yeah, I'm talking today from Tel Aviv, Israel.
Tel Aviv, Israel. And is that where the company is headquartered?
No, so actually the company is headquartered in New York City. So I started the company in New York. We'll probably talk about that. But as I've realized that I need to build the R&D center, so the product and engineering, and do the initial product iteration of a company, I moved back to Israel. Just that's where a lot of my network is. But I'm really like, when people ask me where am I based, I'm saying on an airplane. So wherever I'm needed. Yeah.
I think that's a good actually philosophy, because if anyone listening has some entrepreneurial desires, you will spend a lot of time traveling, even in the remote world that we now live in today, which is accelerated in the last 4 or 5 years because of the pandemic, but you will spend a lot of time at an airport. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Hyro. And it's an AI company in artificial intelligence, language learning models, machine learning, the stuff, easily by a factor of 10, the hottest subject, not only in healthcare, but across every single industry seemingly that exists. So how did you get into AI?
Yeah, so my background, I'm a computer scientist. So I was a software engineer, I was a product manager, and I've majored in computer science and statistics. So machine learning before it was called machine learning. And I did some of that like really purely because I'm a geek. So I like statistics. And when I think in retrospect about the various roles that I've done, most of them in the Israeli tech ecosystem, the common thread is dealing with human-computer interaction, or HCI. So it can be today with large language models and natural language interfaces at Hyro, but I also done it in a computer vision company that lets you try on clothes virtually. A company called Kid that was acquired by Walmart. So I think that that's really like the common thread of everything that I've done. And honestly, before Gen AI or large language models were a hot topic, maybe that's part of like why we've even started Hyro. Ron, my co-founder, and we met in New York City. I did my MBA at Cornell University. He did his master's in computer science. And, as two Israelis that got into the US, we're talking about 2017, we got exposed to the voice space, the entrance of Alexa and Google Home and all of these nice devices. Long story short, we got excited about the opportunity, purchased a few devices, tried them on, got disappointed, but then basically got with two hypotheses that got us to start Hyro. One is that natural language interfaces are going to be the dominant interface when it comes to human-computer interactions, HCI, like where I've been all my life. And two is that for large organizations such as healthcare systems with lots of data from various data sources, it's going to be very hard to deploy and maintain these natural language interfaces. And so I think that these two hypotheses really made us double down on the what is known today as conversational AI. So how we create chatbots or voice AI assistants. So AI assistants that understand human language. So that's the story.
I want to go back a little bit to the Cornell days. And even before that, when you talk about HCI, so in lay terms, what does HCI mean, human-computer interaction?
So how we as humans interact with technology. And let's think about the mouse, right? Or the keyboard. We know that technology can't understand human language. They understand bits, so zeros and ones. And we've created a bunch of graphical user interfaces and some devices to control these graphical user interfaces in order to communicate or with technology. So let's take healthcare as an example. Well, healthcare is actually a bit behind. I wanted to say, like, if I want to schedule an appointment with a physician, today for most health systems, I'll need to call them. So that's my interaction with technology or with a call center. Lately, you are able to schedule some of these appointments online with forms that you need to fill. So you can register as a patient and even sometimes schedule with a PCP without seeing them in advance, so as a new patient, which is kind of advanced today, but it's still a graphical user interface.
All right, so then the GUI, the graphical user interface, is a subset of HCI. It's a component of it. Okay.
Right.
And then from there, and you talked about being a geek and a math person and loving statistics. Those are three areas where you and I completely differ. I'm not a geek. I loathe math, and statistics was not a fun course. But at Cornell, you meet your co-founder. Yeah. And both of you are kind of getting yourselves exposed to some of the early language HCI devices, and you were disappointed. Were you disappointed in the GUI? Were you disappointed in the capabilities? What were you disappointed in?
So I think that one realization, when it works, it's magical. So I've used Waze, which is a GPS software to navigate. And you'll notice that there is a mic button. So you have a GUI. You can type the address that you want to go to, but you can also click the mic button and just say the address. And the first time that I did this, and it takes me time because back then I wasn't used to doing things like this. I wasn't ready to interact with technology using my voice.
Sure.
And he said, I don't know, 415 Madison Avenue, and it got it and immediately start navigating. That was a magical moment for me. And since then, I've never used the keyboard in Waze. I always type the mic button because I want to start driving, So like a hands-free type of interaction while in the car, that's just one example that got my attention to why voice is so powerful. Now, the problem with voice is that you don't have the GUI. You don't have the graphical element a lot of the times. So think about a voice AI assistant in a call center. You can't fill out a form. You can't look at a screen. You're just speaking with an AI assistant. And what got us disappointed is that, one, it didn't understand us most often than not. Two, the latency, so the time it took the AI to actually reply with something back was taking too long. And three, that the use cases were very simplistic. And by simplistic use cases, I mean, play this song, set up an alarm clock. What's the name of George W. Bush father? I don't know, generic questions. If I want to schedule an appointment with a physician, with Alexa, I couldn't do that.
Okay, so that I can understand that frustration. Now there is one thing we do have in common. I am today perpetually frustrated with chatbots, with the assistants, so to speak. And I'm one of those individuals, whether I'm calling American Airlines, whether I'm calling a bank, whether I'm calling anybody. Correct. All I do is say agent as fast as I can, because you get, first of all, the organizations and the businesses, much to the consumer chagrin, the first 45 seconds of welcome to such and such organization is an infomercial. It says, if you'd like faster assistance, please go to the web. Most of us have already been to the web and didn't get the answer that we were looking for. So the chatbot is already behind. But you're correct. I am saying agent, hitting 0. Then you get put back into the queue and then you come back to the same thing. So why is it that the chatbots today and the virtual voice agents, if you will, are so far behind seemingly the user experience?
So we're really in the midst of a revolution in that regard. And the sentiment that you have towards chatbots and voice AI assistant, that's the wide sentiment, I'd say, that most consumers have today, including myself. I'm a Delta guy, and I call Delta, I want the agent. And I don't want to geek out too much about the technology, but really the latest buzz around GPT So ChatGPT basically like took everything that we geeks like in the world of natural language know and saw like the advancement just to a completely different level. And there's a good reason behind that. It's not good marketing. It's because we're really in the midst of an AI revolution. And like
what do you mean by that?
An inflection point where we can really communicate with technology using our voice, using our native language, and these chatbots and voice AI assistants actually understanding what we want to do and being able to help us out.
Okay, so learning, if you will, because of the billions of computations that are going on behind the scenes, that, oh, this person's asking this. They don't necessarily want to see their mileage account on how many miles they have on the air. They want to actually do something a little bit more complex, and then being able to solve some of the issues for you without much effort on your part.
Correct. It's like this combination of a couple of technologies getting things right. It started with like cloud and computing, being able to compute lots of data and being able to build this like very large language model. For a reason they are called large, because we had machine learning models for like decades.
Yeah, 50 plus years.
Yeah, so we got to this point where it actually works, and it works well. There's a lot to do, like in terms of like to schedule an appointment with a physician. It's not only about understanding that that's what you want to do, but you actually need to be integrated to the workflow, to the electronic health record, the EHR, Epic, whatever you're using. So that part as well. But from an understanding perspective, we're really like in a good place today. And I said I'm not going to geek, but a lot of the frustration from the, call it, previous era of chatbots and voice AI assistants was because me as a technology vendor or partner, I needed to think about all of the various intents that users might have and predefine them and create like this very rigid conversational trees of if user says this, then reply with that. And that's not how we human talk or think. Our thinking isn't linear. I started, answering you thinking that I'm going to go this direction, and I ended like in this direction. And now with the large language models, these changes, these context switches are possible.
I think you're right. I'm looking forward to the revolution, if you will. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about Hyro. Now, you took down, as an entrepreneur, the first thing you recognize is capital needs from that standpoint. And we're coming up on about a year now since you had a B round where you raised $20 million. I'd be curious for anybody out there listening that is also thinking of raising some capital. What were, say, your top two takeaways from that experience of raising capital?
Persistence prevails. That's one of the core values here at Hyro, and that's like really special to me. Like I've insisted on that. People didn't like the word persistence, but it's really about persistence. It's understanding that like a lot of different hard things that you want to achieve in life, most of us don't get it right in their first shot, not in the second one, not in the third one. So when you think about fundraising, you should think about it as a sales process. And with that, you need to create a process. You need to understand where you are in this process, and you need to have a lot of different prospects. So one of the cliches here is it's a numbers game. That's an advice that I got when I just started the startup. And I understand that this is the reality of it, because different investors look at different stuff. Obviously, like you have the commonalities, and you need to understand how your growth rate looks like, and your market and your competition. So there are a lot of like boilerplate templates in terms of like these are the areas that you need to focus on. But I think that entrepreneurs or people that want to start a company or to raise capital needs to understand that this is like a sales process, and you need to be very vigilant about that, and you need to meet a lot of investors to make it work. It's not like the first investor that you're going to meet is going to hand you a check, and that persistence prevails in that regard.
And I think there's a core theme fundraising rounds, you're going to get a lot of no's, like you said,
right.
and you're not going to have someone send or give you a check on the first meeting. So how do you, Israel, what are some of your core go-to habits, fundamentals to overcome adversity? And you're going to get knocked down, and how do you get up again?
Yeah, I think that one, it's a mindset that you need to develop. And this mindset says it's not a rejection as long as, or it's not a bad thing as long as I've learned something. And how do I take this no and not becoming frustrated by the fact that someone told me no, but like, why did he say no? What can I learn from this no? And more often than not, I see that my most successful meetings are meetings where people ask me questions and I write down every question that they ask me. And then I think about, so for example, if I'm using like a pitch deck, I'm thinking to myself, well, how do I iterate on this pitch deck so the next investor that I meet don't question this hypothesis that I have, or don't ask me a question about this slide, because the story that I've created makes a lot of sense. And a lot of the times it's really about like the narrative. Obviously, like you need the stats, but also the narrative. So I'd say it's a mindset. Don't get excited by the no, or don't get offended by the no, and thinking, oh, he's stupid, he don't want to invest in my business. But instead, take it as a learning opportunity and really iterate over the product. So the next time would be different.
Right. That may come easier to you as a data person and a stats person, because you're right. The no is just a piece of data. And so now how can I iterate on that piece of data so that the next time I get a yes or a maybe or something like that? That makes perfect sense. Now, in the description of your organization, you have the phrase responsible AI.
Right.
What is responsible AI?
I'm so happy that you asked this question, because I'm getting itchy from buzzwords. So like when we say responsible AI or Gen AI, we try to like, what does it mean? So we've learned that deploying and maintaining conversational AI interfaces, so these chatbots and voice AI assistants for in industries such as healthcare, which is highly regulated, is very different than deploying them, for example, on an e-commerce platform. And there are a bunch of reasons for that. One is, it's regulated. So you need to comply, you need to take compliance into account. And compliance is a big pillar of what we call responsible AI. And when we say compliance, we don't only think about HIPAA compliancy and GDPR and SOC 2 and all of these compliance standards that we know today, but also understanding that regulation of AI is coming and faster than people think. There was the Biden executive order, and the EU already started pushing for it. And I think one of the states, Atlanta maybe, is now passing like a first bill in terms of identifying yourself as an AI assistant and answering, are you an AI? Yes, like in a clear way. So I think that you need to prepare also for future regulation of AI, but you need to make sure that whatever work that you do today, you're not going to need to change it in 6 months' time because of a new regulation. So that's the compliance piece. Now, besides, you need to have a lot of explainability. And explainability is something that is maybe not that straightforward, because large language models, like other machine learning models, are black boxes. Meaning so in the case of a chatbot, the patient asks something and he gets an answer. And what's happened inside sometimes is a black box. So how do you unblack box it, basically? How do you give explainability to the patients, to the physicians, to the health systems? And here is like, that's the difference between e-commerce and healthcare. In that case, that the cost of mistake is so big and so different. So if you're looking for a blue shirt and I'm giving you a black shirt, so what? Maybe you would be disappointed from the chatbots, but what happened? But if you're looking for a specific physician or reschedule an appointment in a time that wasn't really available, that's a big issue. So explainability is the second pillar of what we call responsible AI. And finally, control. So I'd say something that is, at least I believe in, but is a bit controversial. Gen AI, generative AI, everyone are talking about that. And the generative piece is not always a feature. Sometimes it's a bug. So
Correct.
In an emergency situation, when you might, I don't know, feel very unwell and we want the system or the agent or whoever talks with you to send you to the ER, you don't want the AI to generate and hallucinate and make up stuff. You want the same answer each and every time. So you want a controlled response, and you might want to control some of the data sources that are being trained to train the model, and the prioritization between these data sources, and understanding the bias of the model. So control is another big aspect that is very important for regulated industries such as healthcare. So that's the third pillar. So just in sum, we're talking about compliance, explainability, and control. And you need these three elements to what we call responsible AI.
No, it makes perfect sense. And one of the areas that it's interesting, because you talk about call centers and efficiency from the healthcare system or the hospital. And it is something in my day-to-day conversations with helping payers, with helping health systems, large provider organizations. Everyone, almost 100% of the time, is indicating that their call center volume has spiked. Their provider experience or provider satisfaction is declining. Their members or their patient satisfaction with their organization is also declining, and that can impact revenue. And it's an area that we address through a lot of the financial understandings of the health system to help mitigate revenue leakage, to help enhance provider satisfaction. But a lot of it is related to the call center, and increased calls to the call center are usually symptoms of larger problems. How does Hyro AI help the health system and the call center efficiency?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that we think about it like as a multi-layer type of approach. And that's based on hundreds of conversations that we had with CIOs and VPs of patient access and patient engagement and so on. First, like call center being one of the biggest cost centers for these large health organizations, they're coming from how do we become more operational efficient? And efficiency is a big thing. But to your point, they don't want the patients to yell agent immediately. So it's not at the expense, until now it was, at the expense of the patient experience or member experience. Now it's no. We want to become more operational efficient, but we also want the patient and member experience to increase. So 24/7, being able to schedule appointments, for example, from any channel, via text, via mobile, web, call center, and so on and so forth. So the multi-layered approach here is, one, how do we make patients or members don't call the call center and use their favorite digital channels? So creating like these digital front doors, chatbots that actually work on websites, in mobile applications, and SMS that they can use. Now, that would deflect some of the conversations, but then people will still call your call center. And then after they call the call center, how can we direct them back to the digital channels? So maybe you called because you want your password to be resetted as like in your patient portal. Believe it or not, that's one of the highest call volumes that health systems get, both from patients and employees. Calling about password reset. This is not something that you should do on the phone. So this is exactly how let's send you a link via SMS to the page where you can reset the password. We might actually hold on the line and guide you through it as an AI, but you don't need to do it over the phone. So that's directing them back. That's the second layer. And finally, people will still sometimes, like depending on their issue, want to complete the action end-to-end via using their voice, and that's where our voice AI assistants kick in. So today you can actually schedule appointments and do patient registration, verifying appointments, canceling, but also prescription refill over the phone, end-to-end, talking with a voice AI assistant, where they might be not as good as humans today, but you know what? They're going to answer to you in 3 seconds, so no wait time, 24/7, so you can call at midnight, and they're never going to be frustrated or angry at you, and they will try to help you accomplish your task. So these are the 3 layers.
No, that's very good clarity on that, because we're kind of attacking a similar problem from different angles, because most of the frustration that we experience at Medicaid as it relates to increased call center volume is because the provider directory, the physician directory, is inaccurate. It's telling me that Israel is accepting new patients on the website when in fact Israel is not accepting new patients. So when I call to book an appointment with you, I'm frustrated because you're not accepting new patients. So that's an easy clerical administrative fix. But to your point, the staff is burnt out. Staffing shortages are perpetual in healthcare. And so working together, we have to figure out ways to make it easier for the health system to do these sorts of things, because this is fundamental blocking and tackling. This isn't open heart surgery type of stuff. So I love the way you're approaching it and what you're trying to do. It's, we just completed Q1 of 2024. So when you get to the end of 2024 and you look back, how will you gauge whether or not this year was successful?
Knock on wood, I can tell you right now that this year is going to be successful. And I'll tell you why. I think that, 2023, the market was pretty much closed, like the general market. Forget for a second healthcare. Healthcare was even closer. So
correct.
The only thing that gave some hope, call it, is this AI buzz and, talks about, we can be so much more efficient about it, that it's going to revive the economy. The experiences that we're going to get are going to be better. Companies would be so much more efficient. But in 2023, it was really about, okay, this is interesting. Okay, I want to play with it a bit. And it was more of an experimentation year, if you want. In 2024, what we see in healthcare, but generally speaking also, is that these large organizations have made a decision to use Gen AI, conversational AI. It's not like that you're going to use it in a clinical setting, like immediately, or patient-facing setting. So it is like healthcare really like the crawl, walk, run approach, right?
Yes.
But they're definitely going to implement it. And they put some of the processes in place to make it happen. One theme that we're seeing is the emergence of AI governance committees. So health systems are creating AI governance committees from like the provider organization, the patient organization, and the financial and the clinical stuff to evaluate AI and think about how can we start deploying that. So to me, I'd say back to what we talked about, the call center, I feel that 2024 is going to be a successful year if, one, we're able to help these health systems to increase their operational efficiencies. But in parallel, two, we're creating better patient journey and better patient experiences. So it's not a trade-off here, but actually it is a win-win situation.
Sure. It's not an either or, it's a both.
Exactly.
And I completely agree with you. Healthcare seems to have a crawl, walk, run mentality. And I would caution healthcare, we're spending way too much time in the crawl area of this. Yeah. We need to start walking and running. All right, I'm going to switch gears to a favorite segment where we're going to do word association.
Okay.
So I'm going to mention a word or two words, and you tell me what pops into your head. It could either be a sentence, it could be a word, whatever it is that pops into your head. Ready?
Yes.
Staffing shortages.
Big problem.
Big problem. Okay.
Big problem.
The word interoperability.
Amazing opportunity.
See, that's an entrepreneurial mindset right there. Digital health.
On the rise.
What does digital health mean to you in a sentence or two?
I think that it means like money becomes digital, right? Like most of us don't carry cash anymore. Not even credit cards, like it's all in my mobile phone or like with system numbers on a website. I think that when it comes to our health, not necessarily how do we get care, but when it comes to our health, seeing the data, being able to track it better, being able to approach it better, and also being able to navigate the healthcare ecosystem better in a digital way. Not only, but in digital is really a big part of that.
All right, and our last one, Maccabi Tel Aviv FC.
I don't know, probably the best Israeli sports team, but as Israelis, we're not that good at sports. So
he said it, not me. So we'll leave it there. Israel, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you and getting to know Hyro AI. How do folks get a hold of you and investigate the company a little more?
Yes, absolutely. So first off, feel free to go to our website. It's hyro.ai, so easy to remember. And also feel free to reach out to me. I'm still in a position. I'll try to answer all of your emails. So it's Israel@hyro.ai. And if you're a healthcare system or a health plan and you want to learn more, you can see some of the stuff on the website and request a demo. And some of our folks are going to be in touch.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you so much for investing a little time with us. And remember, entrepreneurs and anybody in healthcare, it's persistence, persistence, persistence. We have to continue to get knocked down and get up again. And let's finally move out of that crawl phase and start walking towards some of these innovations and embracing them more. Thank you so much for the time. Great to meet you. I look forward to talking with you more.
Thank you, Martin, for a great conversation.
Appreciate it. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.